Okay, so as this slide says, and as you all know, this is a presentation about Tom Brady and the Patriots in celebration of him being inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. So that's the reason that we're here today. We're here to help celebrate his induction into that. And fittingly, Mary and the team here scheduled this for today, which is, of course, the 12th day of the 6th month, which commemorates number 12, as you can see, Tom Brady's number, and the number of championships that he won with the Patriots, which is 6. Okay, so today's presentation will be a brief decade by decade history of the Patriots since their creation in 1960. We'll talk about Tom Brady's life before he became a member of the Patriots. We'll talk about his career with the Patriots. And toward the end, we'll ask the question, who was more responsible for the Patriots' success? Was it Tom Brady or was it Bill Belichick, the two guys in the picture on the right? The picture at the bottom is Tom Brady and his family. Tom Brady's father originally said he was going to hope to come to this presentation, but he's got too many family members in for his son's ceremony today, so he had to spend time in doing things with them. Okay, some of the material from this comes from a number of different sources. A lot of magazines. Here are like 8 magazine covers of Tom Brady over the years, including him with Tampa Bay. There are a number of books. These are just a sample of the number of books that have been written about the Patriots and Tom Brady over these years, and you can see some of them there. And some of that is from me. I wrote a couple of books about the Patriots. The first one that I wrote was called Patriot Pride, and it was published in 2010. And it's got a history of the Patriots' first 50 years. And as we'll talk about, there's sometimes some weird stuff that went in their history, sometimes some crazy stuff, and then a lot of successful stuff in their history. And the book, as you can see, includes a lot of in-depth interviews with a lot of former players, like Steve Grogan, Drew Bledsoe, and the list of names that you see there, and some former Patriot executives as well. And the second book that I wrote about the Patriots is called Comeback. It's about the whole Deflategate mess, as I call it, and what happened the season that he was going to be suspended, the season he was suspended, and all of that. And so we'll talk about that briefly there, but they did come back and win, at the time that I wrote this, 2 Super Bowls and eventually a third after that whole fiasco. Okay, so let's get started. Patriot history. The team was created in 1959. They had their first game in 1960. They were one of the 8 members of the American Football League, which was started by 2 very rich Texas oilmen and billionaires, Lamar Hunt and Bud Adams, who wanted to have a team in the National Football League, but the National Football League said no. So these guys had enough money that they decided to create their own league. And the Patriots, as it says there, were the last franchise that was added to that. And a fellow by the name of Billy Sullivan was the guy who owned the team at first. And this is how football was different in 1960 than it is today. It cost him $25,000 to have a pro football franchise. But Billy Sullivan didn't have a lot of money, so he put up $8,300 of his own. And some of the rest of it, there were some rumors that there was some shadiness about getting the rest of the money for this thing. But whatever, he got the franchise. The team for years did not have a home. They started by playing at BU's Nickerson Field. If you drive down the Mass Pike going into Boston, you see those 3 buildings that are sort of in an odd angle. It's where the Boston Braves used to play, and those buildings are sort of in the shape of the left field, center field, and right field. They played at Fenway Park. They played at Boston College Field. They played at Harvard. And as you see on the slide there, they even played a home game in Birmingham, Alabama. You might ask why. They were supposed to be playing at Fenway Park in September, but the Red Sox didn't want them to tear up the field, so the Patriots had to find another place to play. So the league was interested in maybe having a franchise in Birmingham, or the Patriots were maybe interested in moving there. So they played a game in Birmingham. Now, aren't you happy you weren't a season ticket holder and the second game of the season is going to be whatever, 800 miles away? All right, we talked about many weird stories. Their practices were at this field by East Boston High School, so they just had bed sheets looking at films. So as Gino Cappelletti was telling me in that book that I wrote, you could just drive by the highway and see what plays they were going to run the next week. And as we mentioned, Billy Sullivan didn't have a lot of money. They were going to play a game in Buffalo. So they told the players, okay, we got hotel rooms, but don't pull the covers down. If you don't pull the covers down, the room is $10. But if you do, it'll be $15. So the players decided, we're going to pull down the covers anyway. One story that's sort of interesting, it's the third slide from the bottom there. They won a game in 1961 because of a fan running onto the field and helping them without anybody seeing it. So the story there was they were playing the Dallas Texans, who by the way are now the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Patriots were leading 28-21 toward the end of the game. And the Dallas quarterback, Cotton Davidson, threw a long pass to Chris Burford. I told you these stupid things are in my head. Got him down to the 1 yard line. Everybody thought the game was over. But the official said, no, 1 second to go. Meanwhile, the fans were all sort of forming a rectangle around the end zone because they'd started to come onto the field. So they pushed them all off. There was maybe 1 second to go. Cotton Davidson went back to throw a pass to Chris Burford again. And some fan came out from the sideline, waved his arms in front of Chris Burford, and then ran out through the back of the end zone. Chris Burford was so distracted he couldn't catch the ball. The Patriots won the game. Nobody saw it. According to Gino Cappelletti, the next day when they were looking at films of the game, they looked at it and they all started laughing. It's like, none of the officials were watching this? But there were rumors about who the guy was. It was a guy wearing a trench coat who did all that. And some people said it was Billy Sullivan trying to get his team a win. But Gino Cappelletti's theory was that was just some bookie from East Boston protecting his bet. So anyway, 1960s, they had really a couple of good years. They made the AFL championship game 1 year, 1963, and they lost to the San Diego Chargers 51-10. And they came close to being the first AFL team to get into a Super Bowl. All they had to do was win their last game of the season in 1966. But in typical Patriot fashion of the time, they lost it. So it was the Kansas City Chiefs who played the Green Bay Packers in that Super Bowl. So that's the 60s. 70s, they finally settled on a home in Foxborough, Mass., the city that they play in now. If you've ever been to a game there, you know it's on Route 1 and the traffic is horrendous getting into the game. But this game, it was the same thing. They didn't really know what to expect. So people were driving to the game. The traffic backup was amazing. A lot of people just left their cars and walked up to the stadium from Route 1 and missed the first part of the game. But they got to it in time. But then afterwards, it took them hours to get home. So the traffic was a mess. The other thing that happened that they weren't expecting is for that first game, at halftime, what do you do at halftime? Lots of people went to the ladies' room, to the men's room. And you know, when the water pressure in town got so low that the Foxborough Fire Department said, we can't do this. You can't have another event here unless you do something because we don't have enough water to fight a fire if there's a fire in town. So they revamped everything, and one Saturday they had what they call the Big Flush, as it says on the screen there, where they had everybody in the staff go to every ladies' room, every men's room in the place, and they sounded a signal over the loudspeaker. And at the same time, they flushed every toilet, every urinal, they turned on all the faucets, and they realized that they had enough water pressure so that it was not a problem after that. Things happen to the Patriots that don't happen to any other team, trust me. The other thing, when they moved from Boston to Foxborough, they thought, well, we can't call ourselves Boston anymore because we don't play just in Boston. So somebody said, let's call ourselves the Bay State Patriots, you know, because we play in Massachusetts. And then Upton Bell, who's been a friend of mine since I wrote that book, the first book that I told you, became their general manager, and he said, we can't be the Bay State Patriots because then all the headlines will be shortened to the BS Patriots lost on Sunday. So it's because of Upton Bell that the team is the New England Patriots and not the Bay State Patriots. So this was a bad team again for many years, 1967 to 1975. They had one good year in 1976. In my opinion, it was their best team before the Tom Brady era. They went to the playoffs, played the Oakland Raiders, and lost with a number of bad officiating calls. In fact, the officiating calls were so bad that other teams at the All-Star game later were talking about how the Raiders really were gifted a win by the officials. They had a big holdout by two of their star players. They had a coach fired before the last game of the season because he took a job. He was so fed up with Billy Sullivan and the team. He took a job to coach the University of Colorado, and Billy Sullivan said, "You can't coach our team then." So the Patriots decided to have two coaches for their last game, one to coach the offense, one to coach the defense. Needless to say, it was a disaster. They lost the game. They lost their first playoff game, and that was their last success for many, many, many years to come. The thing highlighted in blue is one of the weirdest stories in their history. It's about a fan being called down from the stands to play in a game. Guy's name was Bob Gladio. He had played college football at Notre Dame. The story goes over 2 years. In 1969, he was a rookie trying to make the team. He thought he made the team because no coach came to him afterwards and said, "You got to report to the coach and bring your head coach and bring your playbook." So he thought he made the team. But he went home and watched on TV, and they showed the players cut from the team, and his name was one of them. So he went into the head coach, and the head coach says, "Yeah, well, you can be on the taxi squad," a bunch of reserves that in those days they used to have as backups in case people got hurt and so on, for $1,200 a year. "But I got a guy on the other line who's ready to take it if you don't take it now." So he decided to play. So he was with them for 1969. 1970, he was again in training camp with them. Once again, thought he made the team. Once again, found out from a source, in this case it was the newspaper, that he was cut from the team. So he was really upset about that. Okay, now I'll try to do his words as best I can. He said, "I was really upset, so I went out and I met a girl and we partied on Thursday. We partied again on Friday. We partied again on Saturday. Sunday I got up and I told her, 'I'm very sentimental. I'm going to go to the game.' So he called his friend Jack, and he and his friend Jack, according to Bob Gladio, had a tall 6-pack of Schlitz and some homemade port wine before they got to the game." This will set up the rest of this story, by the way. So they got to the stadium, and they got in because Gladio showed them a program that still had his picture and his bio in it and said, "I'm with the team." So they let him and Jack in. So they're going up to their seats, and Jack says, "I'll go get us some hot dogs and beer." So Gladio goes up to the seats. Meanwhile, in the Patriot locker room, they're having a contract dispute with a defensive back named John Charles. And so this is going on, and over the loudspeaker, you hear, "Bob Gladio, please report to the Patriot locker room." Gladio, remember, it's 6-pack of Schlitz, lots of port wine, looks up to the sky and says, "Is that you, God?" And then he hears it again. "Bob Gladio, please report to the Patriot locker room." So he said, "Okay, well, I'll go down there." And they said, "Okay, well, you're going to play, suit up." And he said, all of a sudden, what was going on in my head was dollar signs. But he felt, I'm in no position to play. So anyway, they come out, they're playing Miami, and they come out for the first play, and, "Okay, kickoff team, we're kicking off, go on the field." And Gladio says, "Oh no, that's me." So he goes out on the field, he said, "I don't want to hit anybody." So the Patriots kick off, the Miami player gets the ball, and Gladio's running down the field, and Miami's forming a wedge. Remember in the old days, you could form a wedge to block for a kick. And he said, I think he said, "I veered to the left and then went to the right." The running back, meanwhile, faked to the left and went to the right, and I ran into him and knocked him down. Meanwhile, back up in the stands, Jack is going back with the hot dogs and beer and looking around, and he says to the people around him, "Where's my friend?" And they said, "He was up, he was down, he was up, he was down, he left, and we never saw him again." So Jack, if you look at the picture of Bob Gladio, which is on the bottom left there, his nickname was Harpo. You guys are old enough to remember Harpo Marx, right? And he said, "Oh, Harpo, what did you do?" So Jack sits down, and then he hears over the loudspeaker, "Tackle by number 20, Bob Gladio." And he looks down, and there's his friend coming off the field, having made the tackle in the game. Only the Patriots. Yeah, that's right. All right, 1980s. Again, they were at the bottom of the league for many years in that decade. They had one very successful year. They made the Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history in 1985 with a very good coach, Raymond Berry, who used to play for the Baltimore Colts. Their top player was John Hanna, who was an offensive guard that many people feel was the best offensive lineman in history. In fact, Sports Illustrated had a cover you see on the bottom right there, bottom left, calling him the best offensive lineman of all time. And if you consider Tom Brady to be the best player in team history, I do, John Hanna is probably the second best player in their team's history. But still more weirdness in the 1980s. You guys remember the snowplow game? You know, there's a play where it was snowing. They were playing, it's always Miami, it seems. They were playing Miami, and the field was covered with snow, and when there were timeouts, they would come and just clean off the lines, you know, the 5-yard line, the 10-yard line, whatever. So the coach of the team at the time, Ron Myers, said they were lining up for a field goal. It was 0-0 late in the game. And the coach, Ron Myers, said to the snowplow driver, go clear out a spot for the field goal kicker. So the guy, he cleared the line, then sort of made a nice little curve to clear the spot where the field goal kicker could set up. And John Smith, the kicker, made the kick. They won the game 3-0. Don Shula, the Miami coach, was livid. He said, you can't do this. That's not legal. And the league said, well, there's nothing in the rules against it. So the next year, Shula had tons of snow brought to the Miami stadium to put behind the Patriot bench. Of course, what he didn't come to realize is Miami. It's hot. So it didn't affect the Patriots in any way. Oh yeah, one more story to talk about. When the Patriots got to that Super Bowl, they beat the Jets in the first round, the Raiders in the second round, and Miami in the third round. The Raiders were still one of their big, bitter rivals. And the son of one of the owners, Pat Sullivan, was just yelling and screaming at the Oakland players during the game and then after the game. And in fact, at one point he yelled to Howie Long, who I think still is on an analyst on one of the TV shows, do you know who I am? I own this team. And Howie Long said to him, well, unless your father just dropped dead, you don't own anything. But he still started yelling at him, and they're coming off the field, and Matt Millen took his helmet and hit Patrick Sullivan with his helmet. John Hanna's walking off the field with Steve Nelson, a linebacker, and saying, should we go help him? And Steve Nelson said, nah, he got himself into this mess. Let him get himself out of it. The last part of the story, in the locker room afterward, the reporters are asking the team doctor, any injuries? Did anybody get hurt during the game? And he said, no, everybody's fine, except for that goofball, Patrick Sullivan. Patriots. Okay, things started turning around in the 1990s. They hired Bill Parcells as coach. Parcells was an excellent coach. Bob Kraft bought the team, and they drafted Drew Bledsoe as the number 1 pick in the draft, and he became their quarterback for many years. They reached the playoffs in year 2 of Parcells. They lost to the Cleveland Browns, who were coached, by the way, by Bill Belichick. They got to the Super Bowl, lost to Green Bay, and again, typical Patriots. While this is going on, Parcells is negotiating with the Jets to leave his contract with the Patriots and join the Jets. And in fact, he did not go on the team plane on the way back, which broke his own rule. Kraft was interested in hiring Bill Belichick as coach, but he thought, I don't really want anybody associated with Bill Parcells to be here, so he hired Pete Carroll as their head coach. Things did not go well. Whoops. Okay, all right. The team nosedived. Pete Carroll at the time was not a good coach. They had a worse record every year that Pete Carroll was there. But Kraft finally got his wish, was able to fire Pete Carroll and hire Bill Belichick as coach. And as it says on the slide, after 40 years of mediocrity, everything changed. Kraft asked the Jets for permission to talk to Belichick, and the Jets said no, because Parcells wanted Belichick to stay with the Jets and succeed him as head coach. So they had a bitter argument for a while. And finally, the Patriots agreed. I think Parcells called Kraft one day and said, hi, this is Darth Vader. And so they negotiated a deal where the Patriots give up a first-round pick for the right to hire Bill Belichick. So Belichick's introduced as the head coach. So success came after that. They had the coach in place. They had an owner in place. They needed one more element to become a really good team. And that element came with the drafting of this kid, Tom Brady, in the 2000 draft. Yes, he was a 6th-round pick in the draft. He was the 199th player picked in that draft that year. So all these teams with all their scouting and everything thought there were 198 players better than Tom Brady. All right, well, let's look at some of Brady's life before the Patriots. He was born in San Mateo, California, August 3rd, 1977. So he's 46 years old, if my quick math is right there. He'll be 47 in a couple of months. His parents are Tom Brady Senior and Galen Brady. And he's got 3 older sisters, Maureen, Julie, and Nancy. And you see a couple of pictures, a couple of old family pictures from there. I did ask Tom Brady Sr. for some pictures of the family. So he played high school football, basketball, and baseball at Juniper Serra High School in San Mateo. And as you know from your trivia contest here, he was drafted as a catcher by the Montreal Expos. So he thought he'd have a baseball career, but he really liked football better. Notice he's in a Celtic uniform, also nice and fitting for today with the Patriots playing the 3rd game of their playoff series today. He grew up a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, and in fact his father had season tickets, so he went to a lot of games, including the 1982 championship game. Those of you who are football fans probably remember that that's a game where Joe Montana threw the pass to Dwight Clark at the end of the game to beat the Dallas Cowboys and get the 49ers into the Super Bowl, which they won for the first time. So there's a young Tom Brady with a Joe Montana shirt. And I kind of like this picture. This looks like the same kind of face that he used to show to the officials if something went wrong in the game. But I guess he was developing it at a young age. Okay, then again, if you didn't know it before, you know it from the trivia contest. He went to the University of Michigan and was there from 1995 to 1999. He was a backup at first to Brian Griese, who actually led Michigan to a national championship. Brian Griese is the son of Bob Griese, who was the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins and won 2 Super Bowls in a row in the 1970s. And he was also a backup to this guy, Drew Henson, who was supposed to be a real prospect. He was debating between being a baseball player for the Yankees or playing for the University of Michigan. He decided to play for Michigan. So the coach of Michigan kept alternating them. And the interesting thing is, when Brady went in the 4th quarter, usually the team came back and won. So you wonder why he didn't have the job completely, but he didn't. In fact, he finished his career with a comeback win from 14 points behind to beat Alabama in the Orange Bowl. So, you know, comebacks even before he came to the Patriots, given his career there. And as you see in that little card on the screen, the Patriots drafted him, as I said, with the 199th pick. And that's the card that they hand in that says, this is the guy we're picking, and here's his information. Okay, so the start of Patriots' career. One of the things I really like is in his rookie year, he was going down I don't know, he was going down or he was going up, but he passed Bob Kraft on the steps outside of Foxborough Stadium or Gillette Stadium and said to Bob Kraft, drafting me will be the best decision this organization ever made. And Kraft is thinking, really? You know, this is our 6th round draft pick? I like the confidence, but we'll see. But the team saw that he was working hard after every practice. He took the rookies and the reserves, and he was working with them on plays after every practice, you know, working his craft, getting ready to, in case he played. And the coaches noticed that. He hardly played in the 2000 season. I think he threw 3 passes that year. The team was 5-11, and he was 4th on the quarterback depth chart. You see, Drew Bledsoe was the starter, the face of the franchise. John Freese, Michael Bishop were ahead of him. And oddly, the Patriots decided to take 4 quarterbacks, which teams don't usually do. But they saw enough potential in this Tom Brady to keep him on the roster and keep him on the team. So the 2001 season, the team started out 0-2, looked like another bad season. Then Drew Bledsoe got hurt at the end of game 2 after a vicious hit on the sidelines by a New York Jets player. In fact, when I interviewed Drew Bledsoe, he told me that he almost died because of that hit. We'll talk about that maybe later if we have some time. But Bledsoe was knocked completely out. He was really dazed and didn't know what was going on. So Bill Belichick and the Patriots sent Tom Brady into the game to replace him. The game ended. Patriots lost that game 10-3, and they started out 0-2. But then they started getting momentum. The team went to 5-4 with Brady as the quarterback, and they were looking a lot better. By then, Bledsoe had recovered from his injury, and there was a big decision for Belichick to make. Do you go back to Bledsoe, who made all the money, who was the face of the franchise, who was the starting quarterback? Or do you go with this kid, Tom Brady, who's had some success, but really, doesn't have much experience? And Belichick made a decision which was really big for the team. He decided he would go with Brady, and the rest is history. That was the team's 10th game of the year. It was against the St. Louis Rams, who were a powerful team. They were called the greatest show on turf because they had an outstanding offense. So they lost that game. The record dropped to 5-5. They never lost another game the rest of the season. And in fact, they got to their first Super Bowl. How did they get to that first Super Bowl? They won the first game in the last game ever played at Foxborough Stadium. It was a very snowy, blizzardy Saturday night, which is great TV, maybe not great if you're a player there. And they were losing late in the game when this odd rule called the tuck rule came into effect. Brady went back to throw a pass. He was being blitzed by an Oakland Raider player coming from his right side. And as Brady saw him out of the corner of his eye and brought his arm down, the Oakland player hit him, knocked the ball out, and everybody thought it was a fumble. Except there was a rule in play at the time that if your arm is in the motion of coming down, it's called an incomplete pass. Unless you've actually tucked the ball in and are ready to run or tackled, it's an incomplete pass. So the officials reversed the call. The Patriots got to keep the ball. They scored, they tied the game, and won it in overtime. In fact, if you saw the game, Adam Vinatieri, the kicker, had 2 great kicks to tie the game and then one to win the game in overtime. They went on to Pittsburgh. They beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Although Brady got hurt, Belichick came in and helped them win that game. So there was more controversy again. Does Belichick start the Super Bowl or does Brady start the Super Bowl? I'm sorry, does Bledsoe start the Super Bowl or does Brady start the Super Bowl? And Belichick decided, Brady took us here. Brady's the guy we want to start the Super Bowl if he's healthy, which he was. So then they had a really shocking upset of this greatest show on turf St. Louis Rams team. And we got some photos of that here. The Patriots took actually a 17-3 lead. Ty Law, number 24 there, had an interception return for a touchdown. Brady threw a touchdown pass. They were up 17-3. But St. Louis came back in the fourth quarter and tied it. So the Patriots got the ball back with 1:21 to go in the game. And the announcers, including John Madden, were saying, the Patriots just need to take a knee here, let the clock run out, and send the game into overtime. Meanwhile, on the Patriots sideline, Belichick and the offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss, were talking to Brady and Bledsoe and saying, no, we're going to go for it. So they said to Brady, just don't throw an interception. Don't give up the ball. And Bledsoe turned around and said to Brady, an expletive that I'm not going to repeat, but blanket, just fling the ball. And so Brady came in, he threw a few passes, they started moving downfield, threw a couple of short passes to J.R. Redmond. He threw a pass, the top right there is Troy Brown catching a pass that he ran to about the 35-yard line. They threw one more pass and set it up. The Patriots were out of timeout. Brady, spiked the ball, threw it down, and just reached up and calmly caught it as if he was just catching a wiffle ball in the front yard or something like that. Meanwhile, John Madden, who was saying that they should play for the tie and go into overtime, I love this quote, said, what Tom Brady just did gives me goosebumps. So the Patriots were set up. Adam Vinatieri, number 4 there on your screen, kicked a field goal right through the uprights. And shocking to everybody in the football world, the Patriots were now the Super Bowl champs for the first time ever. By the way, if you guys have any questions or anything along the line, just go ahead and say them. Okay, post-Super Bowl notes. At the time, you may remember that the hero of the Super Bowl was always being interviewed at the end of the game, and they would say, Tom Brady, you just won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do next? And the person was supposed to say, and Brady did, I'm going to Disney World. But Tom Brady remembered that Belichick had the rule that you have to go back on the team plane. Remember, Parcells did not go on the team plane, and Belichick wanted to enforce that everybody goes back with the team. So Brady sort of sheepishly went to Bill Belichick's room and said, Coach, I've got a chance to go to Disney World because I was the most valuable player of the game. Is it okay if I go? And Belichick looked at him and said, of course you can go. How many times do you win the Super Bowl? 6 with the team? But who knew? So the 2002 season, the team started out 9-7. They finished second, missed the playoffs for the only time in Tom Brady's career with the Patriots that they did not make the playoffs when he was healthy. Then the 2003 season began in some controversy. Belichick, who was wont to do this, got rid of one of the favorite players on the team, a real favorite with the team, Lawyer Malloy. He just released him before the start of the season. That's what Belichick did. We may talk about some of that later. Lawyer Malloy signed with the Buffalo Bills, who the Patriots were playing in the first game. The Bills destroyed the Patriots in that game, 31-0. And it looked like a beginning of a bad year. But after going 2-2, they wound up going 14-2. There was a great decision in the middle of the season in a game in Denver where the team was losing 26-21. They were down on their own 3-yard line. And Belichick said, instead of punting, he asked the center to snap the ball out of the end zone for a safety. So the score became 20. What would that have made? 20. I think I've got something wrong there. I think it made it 28-21. And then Brady led the team to a comeback, and they wound up winning the game. I think what I got wrong, it should be 30-28. Sorry about that. Then they beat Tennessee in a very frigid game, the coldest game in Foxborough Stadium history. Beat Tennessee 17-14. They had a player who was one of the co-MVPs of the league. Then they beat Peyton Manning in the AFC Championship game. He was the other co-MVP in the league. And they won the Super Bowl over Carolina 32-29 in a game also won at the end by a field goal by Adam Vinatieri. Now, in typical Patriot history, nothing goes exactly normally, right? That was the game where at halftime there was the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction, which I'm not going to say anything else about. But again, only the Patriots. So the next year, their winning streak reached 21 straight, which was a record at the time. They had another 14-2 year. They defeated the high-powered offense of the Indianapolis Colts and Peyton Manning and held the offense to just 3 points, so 20-3. Then they again had to go to Pittsburgh for the right to get to the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh was known as a defensive team, so the Patriots just hung 41 points on them. So they beat a great offensive team by holding them to 43 points. They beat a great defensive team by overpowering them with 41 points. And they got to the Super Bowl, and they became the second team to win 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. The Cowboys were the first, with a 24-21 win over the Philadelphia Eagles. Sorry, Barry. Barry's a Philadelphia fan. The MVP was Deion Branch, who was a receiver, who was really always in sync with Tom Brady. I guess if you don't mind a quick sideline, one of my favorite stories is before the game. I remember reading this in Sports Illustrated. The writer was writing and saying, what was Deion Branch doing before this game? You know, a lot of players are getting themselves hyped up. They're, doing whatever. But what Deion Branch was doing is he decided to call everyone who had ever coached him. His college coach, his high school coach, his Pee Wee League coach. And all he wanted to do was say to each of these coaches, thank you. Thank you for getting me here. So a really classy guy. I always liked Deion Branch. All right, 2005, 2006. The team lost to Denver in the 2005 playoffs. Their first playoff loss after 10 straight wins in the playoffs. And then controversy. Belichick again gets rid of a player, gets rid of Deion Branch, that, as I said, Brady and Branch were in great sync in a contract dispute. So the team lost to Indianapolis in the playoffs in 2006, in part because they had a very poor receiving core with Branch being gone. So that contributed to them losing that game, even though they had a 21-3 lead at one point. Belichick compensated for that bad decision by Belichick, and he acquired Wes Welker and Randy Moss, whose pictures you see at the bottom of the screen here, for the 2007 season. And that season was spectacular. It was a near-perfect season. They're the only team in NFL history to have a 16-0 regular season record. So they won all 16 games. Yeah, he's already ahead of me. He knows they lost the Super Bowl that year. They're the first team to ever do it, but after the first game of the season, there was a controversy because of Spygate. The Patriots were accused of filming the other team's sidelines from their sidelines, which was against the rule at the time. And though Belichick said we weren't using it during the game, we were just using it for scouting, I don't know about that. As you see, Belichick was fined $500,000. The Patriots lost a first-round draft pick, and their reputation was sullied for many, many years to come, including to the present day. A quote here that I really like, though, by a guy in the Sporting News. It said, "For weeks there's been talk about the relevance of 16-0. Think of it this way, some team wins the Super Bowl every year, but no team has ever gone 16-0. It should be celebrated no matter what happens next." He's right. Hasn't happened since. All right, so they get to the playoffs. They beat Jacksonville. They beat San Diego. And sadly, as you pointed out, they lost the Super Bowl to the New York Giants. Brady threw a touchdown pass to Randy Moss, giving them the lead with 2 minutes, 42 seconds to go. So this is going to be a theme over the next few slides. One defensive stand is all the team needed to win the game and win the Super Bowl, but they couldn't do it. The Giants drove to a winning touchdown that they scored with 35 seconds to go, and the perfect season was gone. And you're right, he's sort of pantomiming it. A key play in that game was a catch the Giants receiver made on that last drive where he just sort of caught the ball against his helmet, which I've never seen before. All right, so then I call it unfinished business between 2008 and 2013. Brady was hurt in the first game of 2008 and out for the season, but the team went 11-5 with Matt Castle, number 16 there, as their quarterback. Great year, but they just finished out of the playoffs. They were a contender throughout those years. They made the Super Bowl again in the 2011 season, so the 2012 Super Bowl, but lost again to the Giants, 21-17. Brady led the team to a comeback from a 9-0 deficit to a 17-15 lead. All it would take would be one defensive stand to stop the Giants, and the Patriots would win the game and win the Super Bowl. But the Giants marched down the field and scored a touchdown with 57 seconds to go and won the game. Sigh. All right, then the 2014 season starts. The Patriots started 2-2, and that fourth game was a blowout loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, 41-14. And some of the reporters were talking about, is Brady over the hill? Is it time to replace him? And in the press conference, Bill Belichick was asked if he'd be reevaluating the quarterback position. And Belichick just gave him this, I said on the slide, a look of disdain, like, are you kidding? We've got Tom Brady. So he didn't reevaluate the position. He stayed with him. And they kept asking, what happened in the game? What happened in the game? What are you going to do? And Belichick responded to each question with one answer. Do you guys remember what it was? We're on to Cincinnati, which was their next game, which is great for a coach to do. So they went on to Cincinnati. They beat Cincinnati, and they went 12-4. Okay, so they get into the playoffs. And here's where another controversy starts. So the Patriots are going to... Wait, am I ahead of myself here? Okay, so they get into the playoffs. And they start the playoffs with a 45-7 win over the Indianapolis Colts. And everything seems fine. I'm driving into work the next day, and in the morning I was just listening to this sports talk show where they interviewed Tom Brady the Monday after any football game. And at one point they said to him, what's this controversy about the footballs not being inflated enough? And I'm thinking, what? I thought these guys were just, doing the kind of thing that sports reporters do and trying to just gen up something and kidding around with him. And in fact, Brady's reaction was, I thought I'd heard everything. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is nothing. But of course, it became something. It became one of the top news stories in the country. All the things that are going on in the country, but the top news story was about whether the Patriots had deflated the footballs. So there was a press conference that Brady did where he described why he does not want anything to be done with the footballs after he has looked at them before the game. Okay, I did not know this at the time, but before a game, each team's quarterback gets to go through, I think, like 4 dozen footballs and picks out 24 of them to use in the game that just feel right to him, and so on. So Brady picked the 24 that he wanted to use, and they went down to an equipment person brought them down to the game, and Brady's comment was, I don't want anything done to them. I've got the right feel for them. These are the ones that I want in the game, but still he was accused of having them tampered with. Okay, so there's a Belichick press conference. Again, this became the big story in the country. And Belichick said, I'm not an expert in footballs. I would not say that I'm the Mona Lisa Vito of the football world. Do you guys know Mona Lisa Vito? It was Marissa Tomei's character in the movie, what's the thing with Vinny? My Cousin Vinny, thank you. And she testified on the stand. She was really knowledgeable about cars and the building of cars and so on. So Belichick referred to her in this. Anyway, the Patriots overcame these accusations, came back from 10 points down against the defending champion Seattle Seahawks, and won the Super Bowl. All right, here's some pictures from that. This was a great plan by the Patriots. Seattle had a very good defense. They sacked the quarterback a lot of times. So their strategy was Brady would take just a few steps back and then quickly throw the ball to get to his receivers before the Seattle defenders could get to him. So it worked pretty well, but they were still down 24-14 in the fourth quarter. So then Brady led them to a comeback. With less than 8 minutes to go, Brady threw a touchdown pass to Danny Amendola. The score is 24-21. And they still need a score. With 2:02 left, Brady connected with Julian Edelman for a 3-yard touchdown pass to put them ahead. This was a good play that they had missed just the play before. Edelman went off to the left toward the sidelines, then cut back along the end zone line. And Brady just missed him the first time, but they called it again. Edelman did the same thing, went toward the sidelines, cut back in, and caught the pass that you see in the top right on the screen. Yeah, okay, I got it there. So you see the catch that Edelman made. And Brady threw 15 passes in that final drive, in those final 2 drives, and completed 13 of them. Phenomenal player. Okay, so they won the Super Bowl, almost. 26 seconds left. Seattle got the ball to the 1-yard line. Looked like they were going to score again and win the game. I mean, while this is going on, okay, Seattle, okay, here's another pass, right? They threw to the Seattle guy on the sidelines. Malcolm Butler broke it up, knocked the ball into the air. The players were falling to the ground. And the ball just came right down into the hands of the Seattle receiver, who got up and started to run it in, but Butler tackled him on, I think, the 2-yard line. Then the next play, Seattle gave it to Marshawn Lynch, who ran it to the 1. And Marshawn Lynch was called beast mode because he was such a hard runner. So everybody thought he's going to run the ball in for a touchdown. Seattle's going to score. Seattle's going to win. But Bill Belichick was noticing on the Seattle sidelines a lot of confusion. And the coaches, the other assistant coaches were telling him, Bill, do we want to call timeout so we have maybe time to do something? And Belichick saying, no, I'm looking at them. If they want to call timeout, let them call timeout. So they didn't, but they sent in a play, and it was a pass play, surprisingly. They threw the pass, and Malcolm Butler made the interception, as you see in the picture there, that actually saved the Super Bowl. Now, a quick story of that. The Patriots had practiced this play and practiced the formation that Seattle made all week during the practice leading up to the Super Bowl. And the defense was never able to stop the play. The offense always scored. But when it came to the Super Bowl, 26 seconds left, Malcolm Butler sees that same formation. He's been prepared for it, knew exactly what to do, so he stepped in front of the receiver, caught the pass, the interception, and saved the Super Bowl win for the Patriots. All right, so as I put it here, so the Patriots won that game and got partial vindication for this Deflategate fiasco in 2015. Then things started getting horrible, and I wrote about this in that book. There's a report done by Ted Wells, a lawyer hired by the NFL to investigate this. Ted Wells, by the way, was a classmate of mine at Holy Cross. And I don't know what I want to say about Ted Wells, but I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. In his report, his summary of this was that it was more probable than not that Tom Brady might have been generally aware that somebody was doing something with these footballs. Now remember, Brady said when he picks the footballs, he doesn't want anybody to tamper with them. But the words that sort of figuratively hung Tom Brady is more probable than not and generally aware. How would you like to go to trial and have those things be the things that make you found guilty? So Brady was suspended for 4 games. The Patriots were fined $1 million. They lost 2 draft picks. There were lots of hearings and court cases. there was a judge listening to a case that Brady and the Players Association brought against the league. And in fact, for whatever it's worth, I wrote a letter to that judge saying, this is wrong. He did nothing wrong. There's no reason for him to be penalized this way. And to my surprise, the judge included that letter in the court docket. Now, it wasn't the only letter he included in the court docket, so it wasn't just me, but anyway, that was kind of nice. So the judge overruled the NFL. So Brady was reinstated for the season. I'll point out that Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, was very inconsistent in how he handled things. There were other equipment issues, none of which got this same kind of penalty. There were cases of spousal abuse or domestic abuse that got less of a penalty to begin with than Tom Brady did for maybe, possibly, potentially saying something that maybe caused somebody to do something with the footballs. But that was more important to Roger Goodell than somebody beating up his girlfriend or wife or something like that. There are also on-the-field incidents that should have been punished more. There's a guy who used to play for the Detroit Lions and then other teams, and Ndamukong Suh was his name, and he used to stomp on the legs of players after he tackled them, right out in the open. You know, he stomped on quarterbacks' legs. You know, you can hurt somebody with the spikes you've got on your feet. Never got suspended, but, you know, maybe being generally aware of something with footballs or whatever was that. And I'll also point out that the Steelers were accused twice of using footballs that were not inflated, that were underinflated, but no investigation, no penalty for them. A lot of people thought that the owners in the league were giving pressure on Roger Goodell to do something against the Patriots because of that Spygate incident back in 2007, where they just got off with a fine, big fine, as you remember. So maybe the Patriots were penalized more than any other team would have been. For example, the Pittsburgh Steelers. If Tom Brady's father were here, I think I said he was hoping to be able to come here. He read this book and called me and said, you know, you were too easy on Roger Goodell in what you said about Goodell. I don't think I was, but I'm also not Tom Brady's father. So anyway, the 2015 season, Brady is playing at this time. The Patriots fell 2 points short of getting into the Super Bowl. They lost to Denver 20-18. They scored with 12 seconds left in the game, tried a 2-point conversion that would have tied the game, and didn't convert on it. Remember that. We'll come back to that point in a couple of minutes. So the Patriots did not get to the Super Bowl that year. Meanwhile, a 3-judge panel in New York overruled that judge's decision by a 2-1 vote. So Brady's suspension was reinstated, and he wound up having to sit out the first 4 games of the next season. And Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback of the team during that, and Jacoby Brissett was the backup for Garoppolo. In fact, Garoppolo got hurt in the second game, so Brissett played the third and fourth game. Brissett is probably going to be the starting quarterback for the Patriots this year while they work in their rookie quarterback. Meanwhile, the Patriots put up this big photo of Tom Brady on the lighthouse outside of the stadium there to support him. And this picture in the middle is Tom Brady practicing during his suspension by throwing passes to Giselle. I told you there'd be a picture of Giselle in the presentation. My wife at this point would point out how good-looking Jimmy Garoppolo is, but as some of you know, she's recovering from surgery. It isn't here. But she tries to cover that by saying he's Italian and good-looking, so it's not that bad. All right, so Brady returns in week 5. The Patriots go 14-1 after his return, and then it's the ultimate comeback in the Super Bowl. Patriots are losing 28-3 late in the third quarter. Looks like all is lost. But they have a touchdown, they have drives to tie the game with 57 seconds left. Remember, I left a bookmark there about the 2-point conversions a couple of years ago? All during that year, the Patriots practiced different 2-point conversions just in case they got to that point again. They would have something to pull out of their bag of tricks to tie the game. So they needed 2 2-point conversions. They got two 2-point conversions and sent the game into overtime, the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. Then Brady led the team to the game-winning drive with precision passes. So the team won their 5th Super Bowl. Brady became the first quarterback to win 5 Super Bowls. The team became the first I'm sorry, he became the first quarterback to win 5 Super Bowls, the first player to become Super Bowl MVP 4 times, and Belichick was the first coach to win 5 Super Bowls. It's not the end of it. All right, so let's relive some of that. As I said, there was Patriot win in overtime, 34-28, come back from 25 points down. Atlanta's ahead 28-12, only 9:44 left in the game, when Dante Hightower makes a key defensive play, sacking the quarterback, Matt Ryan, and causing a fumble that the Patriots recover. Now remember beast mode a couple of years ago with Seattle? It was Dante Hightower made a key tackle at the 1-yard line to keep Marshawn Lynch from scoring a touchdown that would have won the game for Seattle. Was Dante Hightower again in this game making a key defensive play to cause this fumble, and the Patriots recovered. So now, less than 6 minutes to go in the game, the Patriots score on a touchdown pass to Danny Amendola. They need a 2-point conversion to pull themselves within striking distance, and they converted on this direct snap to James White, who ran it in for the touchdown. You see that they're lined up there. Okay, sorry about this, but Brady's lined up behind the center. Instead of snapping the ball to Brady, the center snaps it to James White, who runs it in. You see, and Brady, meanwhile, is faking that the ball was snapped over his head, so to fake the defense. White's got the ball, and he runs it in for the 2-point conversion to pull the Patriots within 28-20. Still not enough. Then a key play of the game. Patriots are driving toward what could be the tying touchdown when Julian Edelman makes an amazing circus catch to keep a Patriots drive alive. I'm going to go back up here because I just want to point out how close this ball is to hitting the ground before Edelman moves his hands in and catches the ball for a reception. So the officials called it a catch. The Falcons said, no, it wasn't a catch. They threw the flag to get a review of that. Okay, so they scored again on a run by James White, and then the Patriots had to have another 2-point conversion, which they got by Brady throwing a pass to Danny Amendola, who just barely gets into the end zone for the 2-point conversion that ties the game, and eventually the game goes in overtime. Now, if you ever want to see terrific quarterback play, watch Brady in the overtime. He throws 4 absolutely perfect passes to get them in position to win the game. He threw 1 pass to James White on, I think, a circle route out of the backfield. He throws 1 to Danny Amendola. He throws 1 to Chris Hogan, who ran down the left sideline and then cut back and caught the ball to keep the drive going. And he threw another pass down the middle to Edelman that set them up. He threw another pass. It could have been a touchdown to Martellus Bennett, but there was interference on the play, which set the ball up on the 1-yard line, and James White ran the ball in for the touchdown that won the Super Bowl. How good is Brady? On that touchdown drive, 8 plays, 75 yards, less than 4 minutes. So the Patriots had another Super Bowl. So victory and total vindication. It's another family picture there, but there's one person in the picture who wasn't in any of the ones. So there's, okay. There's Tom. That's Tom Brady Sr., Tom Brady's mother, who was recovering from cancer surgery at the time, Giselle, his wife, the rest of the family, and one other player that you might recognize here. He's former Red Sox player Kevin Youkilis, who married one of Tom Brady's sisters. I don't know if he still is, if Youkilis is still doing analysis of Red Sox games. He is? Okay. All right. So now we're almost there, guys. 2017-18, controversy. Belichick wants to trade Brady. As my town grandmother would go. But Kraft forces him to keep Brady and trade Jimmy Garoppolo. And the story is that Belichick got even by just getting a 2nd-round draft pick for Garoppolo. Patriots made it to the Super Bowl, an attempt to become the first repeat champion since, well, the Patriots in 2003 and 2004 season, 2004-2005 Super Bowls. But the defense fails Tom Brady again. You're going to love this part, Barry. Brady throws for 505 yards, more than any Super Bowl quarterback has ever thrown for. The Patriots scored 33 points, at the time the most points ever by a losing team in the Super Bowl. Brady leads the team to a 33-32 lead with 9:22 to go. But the defense that day was horrendous. They hardly stopped the Eagles at all. Eagles scored on 8 of 10 possessions. The other 2, they forced the Eagles to punt 1 time. There's an interception inside the 5-yard line on the other play. Defense was terrible. Many third down conversions, many fourth down conversions. There was no pass rush, which in my view is a recurring theme for many years. Many missed tackles, which leads to many, many questions, the biggest of which was, where was Malcolm Butler? He was the hero of the Super Bowl after the 2014 season. He was their best defensive player all year. He had played every down in the championship, the AFC Championship game before that. But for some reason, unknown to this day, Belichick decided not to play Butler in the game. A game where 1 deflected pass, which Butler was good at, 1 downfield tackle, which Butler was good at, to prevent a first down could have won the Super Bowl for the Patriots. But the Eagles won it. Okay, one more Super Bowl win for Brady with the Patriots. It happened in the 2018 season, 2019 Super Bowl. They beat 2 high-powered offenses to win it, beating Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes in overtime in the AFC Championship game, 37-31. Then they played the high-powered offense of the Los Angeles Rams and beat them 13-3 in the Super Bowl. And by the way, that picture is James White scoring the only touchdown in this game and the only time that any team had the ball in the red zone inside the other team's 20-yard line during that game. Okay, here's some pictures from that game. Julian Edelman was the MVP of that game. The picture of that guy sort of diving and catching the ball is Rob Gronkowski, catching the pass that brought them down inside the 5-yard line and setting up that touchdown. And then there were other contributions by the rest of the team here. All right, 2019 to the present. Patriots made the playoffs in 2019, but lost in the first round to the Tennessee Titans. And then Brady's allowed to leave as a free agent after the 2019 season. And he signed with Tampa Bay, and he won his 7th Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in January 2021, Tampa Bay beating Kansas City 31-9. After that, the Patriots dropped to 7-9 in 2020 with Cam Newton as a quarterback. Bounced back a little bit to 10-7 with rookie Mac Jones as a quarterback, but then fell to 8-9 in 2022 with questionable choices by Belichick for the offensive coordinator, by Matt Patricia, who was a defensive guy, and Joe Judge, who was a special teams guy. So that didn't work. And then they fell, as you probably remember, to 4-13 last year and weren't very good at all. Which led to the end of the Belichick era in New England. Back in January 11th, Kraft and Belichick announced at a joint press conference that Belichick was leaving the team, and the team hired Gerard Mayo as the head coach on January 12th, which I guess is exactly 5 months ago today. All right, 2 more things. We'll almost finish with this question. Who's more responsible for the Patriots' success over these years? Is it Tom Brady or is it Bill Belichick? And I want to note, as I say on the slide, there are a lot of players and coaches who contributed. Richard Seymour, Willie McGinnis, Ty Law, Adam Vinatieri, Julian Edelman, Deion Branch, a whole bunch of people that contributed to those wins. But let's look at some facts. Here's Belichick's legacy. Some significant numbers. Only head coach in Super Bowl history with 6 championships. 13 seasons with 12 regular season wins or more, an NFL record. 19 postseason berths as a head coach. 31 playoff victories. 333 total victories, which is second only to Don Shula. Remember him from the snow in Miami? But to that success as a coach are, in my opinion, some very questionable moves as a general manager and player personnel guy for the team. Questionable player transactions. He got rid of players like Lawyer Malloy, Richard Seymour, Ty Law, Deion Branch, Wes Welker. His theory was always, I have to get rid of people 1 year too early rather than 1 year too late. Meanwhile, these people could have helped Tom Brady win a few more Super Bowls, in my opinion. He also had a habit that used to drive me crazy of in the NFL draft trading down. So they would have whatever pick they had. Then when it came up to their pick, you'd hear the commissioner say, and we announce a trade. The Patriots have traded their 1st round pick to whoever for a 3rd round pick this year and a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick next year. So instead of getting players like Clay Matthews, Mark Ingram, Lamar Jackson, who last year was the NFL MVP, They gave up on the chance to draft those guys and saved money, I guess, but lost some chances to possibly win more Super Bowls. And then in the worst offense, in my opinion, in Belichick's, you probably gathered where I'm going with this, he allowed Tom Brady to leave. Meanwhile, let's look at Brady's legacy. Brady had an outstanding career. 7 championships, 7 Super Bowl wins, more than any other team in the league. The Steelers have 6 championships. The 49ers have 6 championships. I think that's right. And Brady's got 7. The Cowboys have 5, I think. He had 10 Super Bowl appearances in 21 years as of 2022 when he retired. So about half the time that Tom Brady played, he got his team into the Super Bowl. He was in 14 conference championship games in those 21 years. So 2/3 of the time, he got his team at least one step away from getting to the Super Bowl. He was the NFL MVP 3 times. He had numerous records that you see here, most touchdown passes in history, most touchdown passes in the Super Bowl, lots of records. And he put his team in position to win 4 more Super Bowls. So those 6 with the Patriots could have been more. And he could have won 9, 10, 11 Super Bowls. And let's look at why. 2006, Brady gave the team a 21-3 lead at halftime over Peyton Manning and the Colts. That's the year that they got rid of Deion Branch. So the Colts came back and won, but Brady had the Patriots in the lead with 3 minutes, 49 seconds to go. One stop by the defense could have won the game and set them into the Super Bowl, or they would have played the Chicago Bears and probably won. 2007 Super Bowl we talked about. Brady led the team to a 16-0 season, a lead over the Giants with 2:42 to go. One defensive stop would have won the Super Bowl, but the Giants scored and the Patriots lost. 2011 Super Bowl. Brady leads the team to a 17-15 lead over the Giants with 3:46 to go. One stop by the defense could have won the game for the Patriots, but the Giants score and win the game in the Super Bowl. The 2018 Super Bowl, Brady gives the Patriots a 33-32 lead over the Eagles with 9:22 left. The defense fails again. The Eagles score a couple of times more, and the Patriots lose 41-33. So I said the Patriots won 6 Super Bowls, but could have easily won 3 or 4 more. One more fact to give you. You see here, I don't know how well you can see it, but this is the Patriots' record with Tom Brady as their quarterback at the top of the screen. And you see that their record in all of their games, 3/4 of the games that they played, they won with Tom Brady as quarterback. That's amazing, especially in this day and age when the NFL likes to have parity. Without Tom Brady, in the 4 seasons after Tom Brady, you see that they've won less than half of the games. So 76% to 43%, quite a difference in my view. Okay, so who's more responsible? My vote is this guy, Tom Brady. You probably gathered that, right? Although there could be some votes for this jolly old fellow, Bill Belichick, as well. It's a crazy picture. I want to give you one more story. I apologize for keeping you late, but I think this is a story that you'll like. I told you I did a lot of interviews for that book that I wrote, Patriot Pride. I interviewed John Hanna. He was my first interview. John Hanna was a guy who was known as being a surly guy. I interviewed him at the Patriots offices in Foxborough, and I thought I better ask him the right questions or he's going to push me right through that wall, which, by the way, John Hanna was strong enough to probably push me through that wall. What I did with all these interviews is I asked a player, I'm going to say the name of one of your teammates. I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind about him. And I did that with John Hanna. And one of the players that I asked him about was Russ Francis. And I said, okay, Russ Francis, tight end for the team. And he said something and then said to me, no, you better not print that. How about say this instead? So it's that instead that I wrote in the book. And I've never told anybody, and I still won't today, what John Hanna said first about Russ Francis. The best story here is the interview that I got with Drew Bledsoe, which was arranged through his mother. I was semi-retired at the time, and the Patriots set up a number of interviews, but I had time on my hands, so I dug up the phone number for Drew Bledsoe, who had a home in Washington State. So I called it, and I got a recording on his phone that said, mailbox is full, please hang up and try again. So I tried again a couple more times, and then I got industrious, so I said, well, let me try to let his parents know what went on. So I dug up the phone number for Mac and Barbara Bledsoe and called, and I spoke to Barbara Bledsoe, very nice lady. And I said the story that Bledsoe's voicemail box is full. I'm hoping to do an interview with him. And she said, I don't know if he'll do the interview, but I'll let him know about the voicemail box. So I waited a day or so, and I called again. And same thing, voicemail box is full, please try again. What I later learned is that Bledsoe had two homes, one in the state of Washington, one in the state of Montana. He was at the time living in Montana. Oh, and Barbara Bledsoe had said, let me know if you were able to reach him. So I sent her an email and said, I still don't know if he's going to do the interview, but you should let him know that his voicemail box is full because he might be getting more important calls than mine. And I'll remember her quotes forever. She said, I don't know if he'll do the interview either, but I'll remind him to be the polite boy he was brought up to be and at least give you an answer. So the next day I got an email from Drew Bledsoe saying, can we do the interview? So I did the interview with Drew Bledsoe, and frankly, it was probably one of the best interviews in the book. And that's when he told me that he almost got killed on that play in 2001. What happened is he got hit on the sidelines, and it had sheared one of the blood vessels in his chest. And so that got him woozy and got him sort of dazed on the sidelines. And he's starting to leave the field, and the trainer stops him and says, we're going to the hospital. And Drew Bledsoe says, let me go in for the team prayer, and then we'll go to the hospital. And the trainer said, no, we're going to the hospital now. I don't like the way you're acting. So they went in and they tried to get him out of his uniform, and he couldn't even get out of his uniform because of the weakness, because of the blood loss. Anyway, they taken him to the hospital. Meanwhile, he's losing blood, and they don't know how to stop it. So they eventually get him to the hospital, and the doctors didn't know how to stop it. They eventually put some device together that was, as the blood was being lost into his abdomen, I guess, they were recycling it back into him to be able to give him back his blood and keep him alive. So, okay. So the reason I know this is I wrote some of this stuff up, but I didn't write it, I didn't know all those details. Everybody that I interviewed, I gave the option of reading the interview before it got published to make sure that I quoted them right or didn't state anything wrong. And I offered that to Drew Bledsoe, and he said, yeah, I'd like to read it. And he called me and said, I'd like you to revise it because I really want you to give more credit to the trainer because he really saved my life. Okay, so I did. So I wrote a note to Barbara Bledsoe and said, just want you to know I did the interview with Drew Bledsoe. It went very well. Thank you again for helping to set it up. And she said, yeah, I'm like a mother hen protecting her chicks. Lots of people wanted to do interviews of Drew, and they said they'll do it well, but then it becomes a real, I forgot what she said, hatchet job, a real negative kind of thing. But you sounded like a nice guy, so I thought maybe he'd want to do the interview with you. So I said to her, well, I offered him the chance to read this. Why don't I send it to you, and you can read it and see what you think as well. And so she read it, and then she sent me a note back and said, Vin, I'm sitting here with tears streaming down my face. Thank you for capturing the true nature of my son in your writing. And I thought, I better go back and reread what I wrote. But I really like that. Anyway, lots of stories that we can get into, but we're sort of way over time. So let me just stop there and see if people have any questions or comments or anything. Anybody? Thanks.